Welcome to Diddygate coverage here on Popcorn Planet. After some technical difficulties, we're back. And I'm so happy because it's Kim's here. And BJ, that surprise witness, you've been crushing it, girl. So grateful. Thank you for the redirects, all the work you've been doing. We were talking a little bit, and I wanted to go straight. You were about to say something. I interrupted you rudely because I wanted it to be in the recap. You said the prosecution crushed it today, that they're winning. Both Kim and BJ seem to be of that. We're going to talk more about it. We're going to break down the details. But what was your biggest surprise today, BJ? You were about to say it.
Well, I wasn't about to say my biggest surprise, but let's see. What was I guess my biggest surprise today was just how straightforward and understandable, especially the RICO arguments were. After all these weeks of everyone even being like, what even is a RICO? Right? What species is that? Or whatever. You know, it was just kind of like very obvious. Like she just, what is that? It was just very obvious to me. And again, some people were reporting likely tomorrow, Diddy's side is going to sound a lot different. So of course we have to keep, an open mind and see what he's going to argue tomorrow. They're going to argue tomorrow, but it just seems the biggest surprise to me was that it seemed like very straightforward and clear and easy to understand. And that actually does take, I think, a high degree of like skill and mastery.
Yeah, I loved the when they talked about substance distribution, this idea that distribution does not have to include payment. So technically, if you have the substance and you distribute it to another person, that is a count of distribution. And we had multiple people on the stand through this trial testify that they were given substances by Diddy. And that's a part of RICO. And it's just like, you just trying to start to see like the one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And again, there's so much of like, it doesn't matter whether or not they wanted to do it. If it happened, it happened. Stay mad. And basically that was kind of the vibe through a lot of this. And it's kind of been something that I feel like I've been saying over and over, that it's like this defense has so much been pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They wanted it. They wanted it. They wanted it. So it's fine. And it's like, no, it's not, because what you guys are still doing is still illegal. Everybody that is saying like there was nothing wrong with what they were doing in the hotel rooms. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize transporting, somebody across state lines for this purpose wasn't. I didn't realize that distribution was fine. I didn't realize acquiring those things was fine. Like I didn't realize somebody being threatened into it was fine. Like you just start to go through it and it's like, this isn't going to work. Your defense isn't going to work.
They don't even necessarily, for like a lot of the charges, have to have known they were participating in a larger RICO. They don't have to have known. They don't have the enterprise members don't have to have been apprised on even what the purpose of the RICO was. The only thing required is that each member of the enterprise, which there only needs to be like I think 3 to satisfy the statute. Basically has to be like Diddy as the middle of the hubcap, and it's got spokes on the wheel, and that's the enterprise. But these people could have just conspired to purchase an illegal substance. Period. That's one.
Hired a sex worker. Right?
Exactly. Then you're purchasing it and lying on the accounting records to cover it up, calling it PD personal instead of what it really is or whatever. And it's like all these little micro acts. It's like, I heard somewhere recently, like one of the ways that, you can expect like propaganda or whatever to run, which is like misleading people, is to just lie really big. Lie about something so big nobody would ever question. Oh my God, they would never be lying about something like that. But it kind of feels like that with the Diddy case. It's like so much bad, over the top, using people as toilets, smuggling this and that. I mean, just the most outrageous stuff. A lot of it we didn't even see or hear. In this case, it just overwhelms you with disgust. But then whenever you hear it laid out like today, ladies and gentlemen, if you purchase illegal things because your boss asked you to do it, you're still committing a crime. It's like, yeah, like all of us like go around our life like, oh, I don't want to, go on a yellow light or whatever. I'm just like, because anything is a crime. But Diddy's out here bold-faced with 15 and a half lawyers saying this was normal. Nothing was wrong with this. This was normal. And it's like such a big farce that it's like almost like, well, how could they be so sure? How could they be so sure with these? They're just wrong. They're just wrong. These things are crimes, even if it's a personal amount, even if he was doing it on a personal time. And I'm glad it felt like an adult stepped back up in the room and was like, okay, listen, the clowns have really completely taken control of the circus. We need to bring it back in. If you bought substances for your boss because they asked you to do it, if it was a little bit, if it was a lot bit, if it was a warehouse full, if it was a trailer full, if it was just enough to put on your hand, it's a crime. That's a crime. So now let's just find him doing it 2 times. Rico. Oh man, it really put it back into perspective for me. Like, okay, Rico is hard to prove, but like actually when you've done this much stuff, it might not be.
Well, well said. I want to go through. I know you can't stay long, so at any point, if you need to dip, understood. Just let us do a quick wave. Let us know. We'll give you a nice send off. But I want to get into it because I do want to go through some of these notes as you are all expecting. So Kim will chime in. I'm going to read some of this so I can, because I haven't been able to read this today. I want to get. It'll help me if I read it. But interject anytime you want to. So this was all led by attorney Christy Slavic, who gave the final arguments. Started with, he doesn't take no for an answer, Slavic said, quoting the influential music producer's former assistant, Brandon Paul. Slavic described Combs as the leader of a criminal enterprise who forced and threatened his girlfriends to have relations with workers for his own entertainment. The defendant used power, violence, and fear to get what he wanted. Slavic listed some of the alleged crimes. Combs committed kidnapping, arson, forced labor, bribery, before turning to what she called the brutal crimes at the heart of this case, ST, trafficking. Slavic reminded the jury of what she called 2 shockingly similar incidents 8 years apart, when Sean Diddy Combs hit up Cassie at the Intercontinental Hotel, and then when he did it again to Jane in her home in June 2024. They're not separate stories. They're chapters in the same book. The story of Sean Combs and the criminal enterprise he led, made up of his inner circle. Slavic said, the enterprise serviced the defendant's every desire through a methodical pattern of violence, coercion, and manipulation. Damn. The defendant counted on silence and shame to keep his crimes hidden. He thought that his fame, wealth, and power put him above the law, but over the course of this trial, his crimes have been exposed. While racketeering is often associated with the mafia, organized crime, it firmly applies to the illegal activity she alleges Sean Combs and his loyalists carried out. The law recognizes that when someone commits a crime as a part of a group, they're more powerful and more dangerous. That's what happened here. The defendant is a very powerful man, but he became more powerful and more dangerous because of the support of his inner circle and his businesses. I would add Jay-Z and so many countless others to this mix that for some reason haven't been able to be included, but maybe someday, one at a time, right? That the enterprise, Slavic said, she said the enterprise's purpose was to serve and protect the defendant. Facts. The defendant was at the top of its enterprise. Remember, it's his kingdom. Everyone was there to serve him. She listed the ways the enterprise served him, including by promoting and protecting his reputation, fulfilling his personal and adult desires, enabling him and his inner circle to commit crimes, protecting them from law enforcement detection. She laid out the elements that the government must prove for the jury to convict Combs of. Count 1, racketeering conspiracy. There was a conspiracy to participate in the Combs enterprise. The Combs enterprise affected interstate or foreign commerce. The defendant knowingly and willfully became a member of the conspiracy. The defendant knowingly and willingly agreed that he or another member of the conspiracy will commit 2 racketeering crimes. He said that when she talks about the enterprise, she's not referring to Combs' company called Combs Enterprise. The enterprise is Combs and his trusted inner circle. It has existed to serve his needs and what he went. I love that clarification too, because people are like, yeah, well, it's not the business. No, it's his employees working for him. Slavic showed the jury a photo of KK, his former chief of staff, describing her as one of Combs' most loyal lieutenants. KK knew where the defendant was and what he was doing at all times. She made the defendant's life her life. Now, I want to pause. We're going to pause throughout to get thoughts, but BJ, I do want to go to you. Why didn't they bring her in here? I've asked Nate. We've talked to Kim. A lot of us have talked about it. Do you think that was wise? Now they're using it against her. Like, look at her. But why do you think they didn't fully bring her in? What happened?
Okay. For me, it's like one of 2 things. Either KK's getting her own trial and it's coming. And it's just now going to be a lot easier to get these members of this so-called alleged enterprise because now it's been defined. Now we know victims alleged of it. et cetera, et cetera. And so if the prosecutors can get Diddy convicted on a RICO act, then anybody I think that they have named who doesn't already have immunity is fair game to be a defendant in their own, perhaps not quite as high profile trial. The other possibility I think could be is that they really just wanted to get Diddy. He was the leader of it, and that's who they're going after. Even dealing with one other person, now it's two of them together whose interests are aligned. They were kind of able to isolate Diddy on an island. Nobody other than Ye is, out here singing Diddy defense, and of course the paid $20 an hour in Diddy coin, actors or whatever. But like, they were able to really put him on an island. Now imagine they co-charged him with like even one other person, then those people might, I don't know, maybe it was that. But my first like gut instinct is like they're going to charge a lot of these people if they haven't already, if Diddy gets convicted, because then they've already established an enterprise and harm, and someone's been convicted already. So now it's like the leader's been done. So like, let's get the lieutenants, the loyal lieutenants. But
yeah, that's what they called it. Kim, let me read a little bit more and I'm going to come back to you to go through it. But these are the members of the security team as well. Some of these security guards have been working for a long time. Those lieutenants were particularly loyal and they were armed and ready. They were at the defendant's side for some of the most violent and threatening acts. Combs' assistants were foot soldiers of the enterprise. She said they didn't blink an eye when they were directed to do something by Combs, KK, or a member of security, even when it meant facilitating a crime. These individuals were all paid by Combs and companies, Slavic said. She mentioned that Brandon Paul, Combs' assistant, testified he made $100,000. KK made 6 times that, $600,000 a year. The defendant used the money and the gravitas from his businesses to facilitate the crimes that he and his inner circle committed. Now, Kim, it seems like maybe they just chose Brandon Paul as the one. All right, this guy is the smaller fish of all these people that we're going to go after. We'll give you the deal. You better, uncover them all. Is maybe what it was. And they felt, well, we have enough, so we don't need to bring in KK and everybody else. We'll get them later. What do you think, Kim?
I think Brandon being brought in was I think for the prosecution, it may have been a lucky break in the sense that Brandon had substances on him by accident. He testified that he was not intending to have those on his person, that they were supposed to be in like the Gucci bag or in another bag. And unfortunately they were on him at the time that the agents came and saw them at the airport before they left on the day of the raids. He also has had his charges essentially dropped. He completed a program that, he's home free and was able to plead the fifth, testify, and move on. I think if Christina Karam had something on her, when like her phones were seized and things like that, we'd have a different situation right now. But if they had Christina come in as a witness, she absolutely would have had to plead the fifth, I think.
Right.
And then they would be like, we have to give you immunity. I don't think they want to give her immunity. So that's kind of why I think they went for Brandon.
If they would have given her immunity, then she's never allowed to be prosecuted on this, which kind of feeds back into that first theory of she's got her own case coming.
Yeah.
So and if they would have given her immunity here, she wouldn't have been able to ever be having her own case.
So ultimately, Brandon was kind of, I think, a small fish in this. He was a young guy, that was going to be an athlete, and then really wanted to go into music, got wrapped up in this world, made a mistake, ended up getting arrested, but it sounds like he cooperated the whole way through. I doubt Christina Karam has been that cooperative, and that's just my opinion. And I would not be surprised if we see a charges for her coming at some point.
Well said. Agreed. Slavic urged the jury to use common sense against the defense's claim that the criminal enterprise didn't exist just because no one testified explicitly that they were in one. She told the jury that when a person agrees to their boss's demand to buy substances, they're agreeing to a crime. When a person locks their boss's girlfriend in a room after he stomped on her face, that person is agreeing to commit a crime with their boss. And that is agreeing to participate in an enterprise, the prosecutor asserted. Damn, that's very clear, concise, and puts it all out there. She urged jurors to pay attention to a map when they look back at Combs's alleged criminal. Do we have that? Did they show the map?
No, we don't have a
get
map.
those maps,
No,
right? I know
the
there was
whole
some-
public screens were off. Andy,
So
I do have to
frustrating.
run
Okay, BJ,
now.
thank you for
So
everything
sorry I
you've
could
done.
only stay so short, but I
Oh,
have
it's
to
fine.
get to an engagement.
Yes.
Thank you as
Prior
always. Please
engagement.
come back. Please keep doing your awesomeness and enjoy. Have a
Yes.
good stream. And thank you as always.
Thank you. Thank you. See y'all later.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.
We will get her back soon. We love her getting back into this. So we didn't get any of these. There was a bunch of visuals we didn't get to see, annoyingly. But they were look back at the crime. She's when looking back at a map to look back at the criminal acts. She said when workers were paid to cross state lines or cell phones were used, those acts amounted to violations of interstate commerce laws. So that's we're already getting into it. Right? It only takes two. Substance distribution. Whether a Combs staff removed a single pill or 1,000 at his behest, those actions were criminal. Prosecutor said, you know what the defendant did? He gave them to Cassie and Jane. This is a substance distribution, plain and simple. Prosecution listed white powder, meth, maid killers, yada, yada, yada. All of the stuff. Magical fungus. I like all these things you're putting in there. Poly with an MC2. These have been shown through the trial. Slavic then stressed the quantities are not relevant. It's not an element of this crime. Distribution does not require a sale. After going into detail about various interactions of Diddy's staff had with dealers at his direction, prosecution went over multiple instances where Diddy gave other substances. Brendan Paul, Kerry Morgan, Bonna, Cassie, Jane were all given substances by Diddy and testified to it. KK also knew that Diddy was distributing to the women at these freak-offs. Jane even told KK she was having a bad come down, and KK gave her tips on how to deal with it. Substances were distributed. It doesn't matter if he was buying kilos or selling them. Personal use is just a distraction. They bought and distributed to people around him. I mean, bam. That's... Are my sound bites working?
Hold on.
I
to your
heard it.
butts.
I hope everybody else did.
Now
yeah.
we get into kidnapping. She reminded the jury of Cassie's testimony about a 2009 incident when, after stomping on her face in a car, Combs forced her to stay in a hotel for a week while she healed. Security brought her back to his house after she jumped out of the car and tried to run away. While she stayed at the hotel, Combs' staff brought her clothes and food. His security team made sure she didn't leave. I don't know about you guys. That's kidnapping. Slavic told the jury that they can be confident this happened because Combs' former assistant, David James, testified that he remembered bringing her ice cream while staying at the hotel. It's clear that Cassie did not consent to staying at the London hotel, but had no choice. The defendant told her she couldn't leave. He had his security team telling her she couldn't leave, and Cassie knew what happened when people said no to the defendant. The second two kidnapping allegations include Capricorn Clark, former employee of Sean Combs, who testified at the trial. Shortly after she started as his personal assistant, prosecution said Clark was subjected to 5 days of lie detector tests to prove that she was not involved in a jewelry theft. The second incident relates to Combs' jealous rage after discovering that Cassie had begun a relationship with rapper Kid Cudi. Clark testified that Combs showed up at her apartment with a piece and told her, get dressed, we're going to unalive Cudi. The prosecution said Combs then demanded that Clark come with him to Cudi's house. When referring to the Kid Cudi's car, Slavic said someone cut a hole in the roof of his car, dropped a Molotov cocktail. We're not suggesting the defendant cut the hole. He didn't even buy his own soup. You heard the voice notes. He said he was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car. What are the odds he says it and it happens? The coincidences just keep on coming. Kid Cudi referred to Diddy as a Marvel villain and his apology years later. The enterprise's purpose was to protect its leader, not to protect Cassie, not to protect Capricorn. So well said. She really is coming in with a fantastic script, which they needed, to be honest, because everyone out there is trying to poke holes and not understand it. Let's keep going. Bribery. The prosecution said that two of Sean Combs' employees, KK and security guard known as D-Rock, did everything they could to cover the defendant's tracks. Following the hotel on Cassie incident with Cassie, after hotel surveillance cameras captured it, KK tried to get the footage from security, calling multiple times and showing up to the lobby. One of the hotel security guards, Eddie Garcia, testified at the trial that he and his boss ultimately agreed to hand over the footage in exchange for money. When Garcia arrived at Combs' office, D-Rock greeted him and told him he was doing a good thing. Prosecution said that D-Rock was also monitoring Cassie and her injuries. Security guard said he walked away with $100,000 that day. Payment that the prosecutor alleged mounted to bribery. They also brought up Israel Flores, the other guard Combs tried to bribe with a stack of money. He testified he declined at the time when he responded to a scene. The defendant had overwhelming motive to use means possible to cover up the hotel incident. Bad publicity surrounded the videotaped incident would ruin him, according to prosecutor. Those actions amounted to a criminal act. Paying for silence is influencing testimony, she told the jury. And let's not forget, I guess allegedly, sure seems like Israel Flores is the real hero. Not only did he say no, Kim, but he kept a copy on his phone because he wanted to send it to his wife to show her how crazy it all was. And if he hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have had that incident. We would never have saw this. And I don't know if it ever would have gotten here. That video unlocked everything because they were finally able to prove the monster Diddy was. All the lies, all the things he was trying to put out there were immediately crushed, and it was uncovered. So Israel Flores really is a true hero in all this. Thank goodness he got that. Now, car trafficking, but not car, the S word, many adult cars. Slavic clarified for jurors that the government is not arguing that all of the nights with male workers constitute ST. At first, she said Cassie and Jane were open to fulfilling Combs's voyeurism fantasy, but the dynamic soon changed. That's so key. I'm so glad they're acknowledging and hitting that harder. If there is one time, one single freak off that the jurors find were the product of force, threats of force, fraud, or coercion, Combs should be found guilty of ST. One time! You're allowed to say no once, and that means you can't do it. And if he still did it, or forced them to do it, we have another one.
Another one.
Slavic told the jury that they can find that Combs Enterprise helped him commit those STs of Cassie and Jane. This is not an attempt to criminalize dysfunctional relationships or unconventional adult preferences. Prosecutor acknowledged that both Cassie and Jane agreed to try freak-offs and hotel nights at the beginning of the relationships. Slavic said the jury doesn't need to find that all or the majority of the freak-offs or hotel nights were the product of force or coercion. Again, takes one. The law also doesn't require Cassie or Jane to have said no to Combs at the time or try to run away. Slavic showed the jury images of 27 men that Combs hired to have relationships with Cassie, Jane, or both. Slavic said these hotel nights in September, October, June are the most clear-cut examples of ST with Jane, but there are many other hotel nights that Jane agreed to because of the defendant's pattern of coercion. The beginning of Jane and Combs' relationship was a classic example of love bombing. She said Combs showered her with gifts, affection, to prime her to do exactly what he wanted her to do, and she spends the rest of the relationship chasing that intense feeling of love. The defendant started G-wording?
Yeah, ooming.
Oh, opposite of a bride. Got it. Sorry, now we said it. Sorry, YouTube, annoying. So did briding, the opposite of briding Jane, slowly introducing her to the different elements of FOs. Slavic said she referred to Jane's testimony about their first hotel night, which she said she agreed to because she was on substances, but also just wanted to please her partner, and that she felt like she opened Pandora's box. Jane's text messages was read in part saying, "I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. It's dark, sleazy. It makes me feel disgusted with myself. I feel it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you in fear of losing the roof over my head." I mean, it doesn't get more damning than that, Kim. No, that's pretty damn damning.
There's your one. Consent has been revoked. One, that's it. And that's what I've been saying this whole time, that it's like everybody gets so distracted by this, like, but they wanted it sometimes. Doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. All of these text messages they're reading, going like, I'm going to be your little freak. It doesn't matter. It's never mattered. It's just another way, in my opinion, for Diddy to continue to torture and hurt these women on a public stage.
Right. And if he was just hooking up with them consensually, we wouldn't be here. This is far more dirty and intense and involving a lot of other crimes that are clearly all being listed that his co-workers helped him pull off and get away with. So, yeah, disgusting. Jane went along with these hotel nights for a while, even though she didn't want to have relationships with other men. After then a few months, she started resisting. Slavic said the defendant ignored Jane's discomfort. Combs is sitting back in his chair. His eyes are downcast. I've heard lots of reports about this, Kim, that he was definitely feeling it today, not looking as upbeat and full of love as other days. Finally, as now all the pieces have been played out and they are now explaining They're bored. They're chessboard. He's clearly feeling the heat. Combs piled her with substances, manipulated her into continuing. He even used paying her rent as a way to control her. Slavic then played a voice note of Combs saying, "I'm about to really disappear on you. I don't have time for this baby girl. You got me on my job. You got to get on your job." Slavic then said, he may say it's not a threat, but the message couldn't have been clearer. Threatening to take away her home and could turn a no, her home could turn a no into yes. That's coercion. And it worked. Fennett looked dejected as Slavic launched into him about his freak-offs and the possibility of criminal liability connected to those rendezvous. Slavic said that when Cassie filed her lawsuit, it bore a harrowing resemblance to what Jane was experiencing. Slavic told the jury that texts Jane sent Combs after the lawsuit spoke volumes. She read excerpts. I feel like I'm reading my own adult trauma. This was adult exploitation that you framed as love for your sick fetishes. Slavic played part of a phone call between Combs and Jane after the lawsuit, including a moment when Combs interrupts Jane. Slavic says the recording shows Combs presented her with a false narrative of the events, but when his gaslighting didn't work, he cut Jane off as soon as she started telling the truth. The defendant's conduct had one purpose: to get Jane to agree to do hotel nights. And because the defendant knew exactly what he was doing, this was ST. In order to find Combs guilty of ST, Slavic told the jury they have to find that Combs used force, fraud, threats, or coercion to make Jane participate in hotel nights. Slavic said they can find he used any of those means alone or in combination of them. The fact that a victim consents once to a commercial adult act, it doesn't mean that she consented every time. You only need to find that one of these hotel nights means the definition of ST here. Combs frequently arranged transportation for Jane to travel across state lines, and engage in relations with men. He had Jane flown to New York, California, Miami, Vegas, Turks and Caicos. Prosecutor pushed. At the same time, Cabral, a frequently used worker, was also being transported across state lines for their hotel nights. Sean Combs looked uncomfortable during prosecutors' closing arguments. His chair at the defense table is positioned about 2 feet behind his row of attorneys. His hands are folded on his lap, and he is mainly staring straight ahead or down, avoiding looking at the jury. Well, yeah, because he can't afford that today. Another report said that Combs has had his hands clasped in his lap and his head is down. As Slavic continues, he appears downtrodden. On occasion, Combs looks up and glances over the jury with a look of defeat on his face. There was also a sketch of his family released today from court. There it is, just so you guys can see something, because they don't really give us much. But yeah, I can't imagine they're enjoying listening to all this.
There's a bit of side eye here. I think that speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. Jane testified at trial that Combs said to her, charge me for your resentment. I just need you to get over this. Just tell me what it is. I don't want any loose ends. Just charge me. Jane reached out to KK, Combs' former chief, after she and Combs broke up, asking KK to intervene when Combs wouldn't leave her alone. In a text Jane wrote to KK in December 2023, she said in part, he just threatened me about my adult tapes, that he has me on 2 phones. He said that he would expose me and send them to my child's father. He has been bothering me for 2 months. After all I've been asking for is space. He knew that, and all I asked for was space and quiet time. I'm traumatized from my experience with him. Mind you, these are adult tapes where I'm heavily under the influence and doing things he asked of me for the past 3 years and I am currently recovering from. It's also extremely hurtful, very hurtful for him to exploit me all this time and then threaten me with these tapes. Please talk some sense into him because this isn't fair to me at all whatsoever. I'm beyond hurt. My gosh, that's not a voicemail or it's a text. Damning stuff. KK, who didn't act surprised, responded, I always tell him all the time to just give these things space. Otherwise, we end up in a situation like we're at right now. So again, his biggest person, Kim. Yep, this happens all the time.
Oh, I just wish she'd give it more space. I wish she'd hold space for this more, and then it would all be better.
She's acknowledging a pattern, and yeah, the more I look at this, the more now I'm like, oh, that's why they're saving her. She's next. Slavic told the jury that Combs has ST'd Jane in September by coercing her to travel to New York to see him, promising they wouldn't spend a night in a hotel, as well as a sobriety party. Jane has told the defendant multiple times repeatedly that she doesn't want to keep doing these hotel nights. She pointed to messages Jane sent Combs before that night, in part saying, I'm not a porn star, I'm not an animal, I need a break. Combs responded by making false promises about them spending time together. When Jane continued to resist, he switches from carrot to stick. That stick is Jane's house that he's paying for. Finally, Combs told Jane that he was sick and needed Jane to take care of him. And finally, the defendant's tactics worked. Jane soon found herself in a hotel, having relations with other men. Jane testified it was her first time doing a hotel night without any substances. Jane was so overwhelmed by the experience that she vomited between the second and third person. And even when she vomited, the defendant wouldn't let her stop. Prosecutor then highlighted a third instance of alleged ST of Jane in June 2024 when Combs was under criminal investigation. So even after all this was still going, feds raid, etc., he still was doing it. That's how bad this guy is.
Yeah.
Escalated and put her in a chokehold, hurting her, giving her welts, etc. After doing this, A-ing Jane over the course of hours, the defendant decided it was time for her to have relations with a worker. Jane testified that she repeatedly said, "I don't want to," but Combs, his face close to hers, asked, "Is this coercion?" The answer to that question is yes. Slavic stressed that these nights didn't happen in isolation. They were part of a years-long buildup before turning on videos of hotel nights. If she was high on a substance that made her feel aroused, she wouldn't refuse. What those videos showed was that Jane was super, super under the influence. This is not an adult woman making a free choice, as the defense has suggested. The factors lurking in the background of the relationship, the threat of releasing tapes, the rent payments, the violent outbursts, make up the rest of the picture. Focus then shifted to Cassie, with Slavic saying that Combs piled her with substances to the point of addiction and pressured her into relationships with hired men. Like with Jane, it became her job. It became her shame. Prosecution reminded the jury of telling an anecdote from the testimony of Capricorn Clark, meant to illustrate that what they say was his interest in the younger singer Cassie, her moldability and total compliance. He called Cassie over and asked her to sit down, stand up, turn around, then turn the other way, walk over, grab that, hand me that, walk back, go in the other room. Cassie did it, Clark said. Slavic continued, he made her dependent on him and kept Cassie occupied with busy work, recording songs that no one would listen to. Combs decided what Cassie wore, what her nails looked like, and she spoke to so much more. And despite the hours Cassie spent in the recording studio, he would never allow her to release another album. It was not normal, the prosecutor said. He regularly threatened, hurt her, and piled her with substances, forced her to perform with workers in front of him. It was her job and her shame. Slavic says Combs also did similar things to Cassie's family, like when he demanded $20,000 from her parents after finding out she was seeing Kid Cudi. The account belonging to Combs, which her parents wired money to, received about $3.4 million that same month and saw about $2 million withdrawn. This wasn't about the $20K. This was about control. He assaulted her in Jamaica. He beat her up in Vegas while she was curled under a toilet. She said D-Rock cried. There was an incident at the Continental Hotel caught on tape. Prosecution shows multiple pictures of a bruising Cassie. Another was of her busted eyebrow when Cassie was thrown in a bed frame. Any one of these attacks would have been life-changing, but for Cassie, it became her normal. She was there when he attacked Mia, Denante Nash, Bana. Bana may have gotten the date wrong, but she had injuries. Described how even in South Africa, she couldn't get away. KK kept calling. D-Rock was loyal to Diddy, playing both sides. Cassie never knew when Combs would be triggered and hurt her, which kept her off balance and gave Combs control in their relationship. Slavic said, reminded the jury that Cassie testified, "Make the wrong face, and the next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face." Prosecutor reminded the jury that in 2010, Combs attacked her under Prince's security until Prince's security intervened. Because Combs was angry, she went to a party at Prince's house without Combs' permission. Slavic described the freak-offs involving Cassie, saying they lasted hours. She was covered in baby oil, wore uncomfortable outfits, and sometimes participated while on her time of the month or suffering from UTIs. Why? Because it was a turn-on for him, humiliating her. But she kept doing for them for 10 years. Substances were a big part of that. Slavic said Cassie also did freak-offs because she wanted to make Combs happy because she loved him. She also told you over the course of a relationship with the defendant, there were hundreds of freak-offs, and even if Cassie didn't want to do a freak-off, she went along with it or pretended to. She said Slavic told the jury that they didn't have to find that every freak-off was an instance of ST, but this is not an all or none situation, adding that there were many freak-offs Cassie participated in because of Combs' force, threats, or coercion. She recounted Cassie's testimony about Combs's essaying her in 2018 after they had dinner together. The defendant easily admitted in a text message. She read part of the message Combs sent Cassie the following day, in which part said, "I know, I look bad to you. I can tell you I didn't turn you on yesterday." This is his way of saying, "I know I R'd you." He's downplaying it, but he knows that what he did was wrong. Slavic said Cassie went back to Combs even after the R because of the trauma bond. Combs' head was down as Slavic replayed video of him doing that to Cassie in the hallway. Again, what a time to play it too, right, Kim? Again,
Yep.
They've seen it a lot. They've been watching horrible stuff for weeks. But now, after all this context, everything explained, now you get to watch it again. Whew. This tape should leave no doubt he committed ST. He used force to try to carry Cassie back into her hotel room where the worker was waiting so he could continue with the freak-off. Prosecutor argued. Not only did he A her in the hotel and bribe guards to buy the footage of his attack, but Combs also showed up at Cassie's apartment after banging at the door with a hammer. He reminded the jury. Combs knew he had to keep Cassie under control.
Can I
Go ahead,
interrupt
Kim.
here
Yep.
just for 1 second?
Please.
I want to take that moment and just really acknowledge it, because I see people still being like, oh, well, I guess consent is just a moving goalpost, or whatever excuse you want to give. Cassie did not want to be in that room. That's why she left. And look what happened to her. If you think that she has consented to that, even watching that tape, I'm sorry, denial is a river in Egypt. You are on a different, mental plane than the rest of us. Because what you are saying, if you're thinking that Cassie was okay with this and consented to this, you've lost your mind. The rules here are, if there is one instance, it's ST. The prosecutor is right. This should leave no doubt. Absolutely none. None. We have multiple instances with Jane. We have multiple instances with Cassie. Your argument is invalid and it's stupid. And the more you keep repeating it, you sound like an idiot. Just my opinion.
Well said, and agree. Agreed. Second specific incidence of ST was based on the testimony of Daniel Phillip, who said he was paid between $700 and $6,000 to have relations with Cassie in front of Sean Combs. Once after they had finished, having relations, Combs called to Cassie from another room. When she didn't go immediately, Phillips said he saw a liquor bottle fly past her and hit the wall. Then he testified Combs started dragging her by the hair into the bedroom. Mr. Phillip could hear what sounded like after they emerged. "Are you all ready to continue now?" According to testimony, is what Sean said. Third example of coercion resulting in a freak-off included the government in an instance after Sean Combs and Cassie fought in the Cannes Film Festival and returned to New York, where she had relations with a worker. On the flight back, Cassie had tried to move away from Combs, but he followed her to a new seat. He spent the entire flight holding Cassie captive and making her watch videos that he made of FOs and threatening her that he would release them. She felt scared. She felt trapped. When Combs then demanded a freak-off in New York, Cassie didn't believe she had a choice. The defense also argued that Diddy's employees could not have been facilitating ST because they did not know the specifics of what happened in those hotel rooms, and that Combs at times made efforts to hide the workers from his staff. Prosecution pointed to one instance, though, in which a former assistant saw footage on an iPad of Jane having relations with another man, with Combs in the background. The evidence showed that at least 2 other employees were privy to that video. So they can play dumb as all they want, but they knew what was going on.
Duh.
Now, interstate transportation for adult workers. I like how you put that there, yes. Slavic emphasized that while these potential crimes could be considered a racketeering act under the other counts, Combs also is charged separately with these crimes. Crucially, this charge does not require force, fraud, or coercion. Even if all the participants enthusiastically consented, it doesn't matter. It's still a crime to transport people across state lines or internationally for freak-offs or hotel nights. Prosecution showed messages in which Combs arranged a flight in 2009 for a worker, Jules, who Cassie testified the couple hired regularly. Prosecutor cited a credit card record showing the hotel charges for that stay and Combs' message to Jules telling him which hotel room to visit. Government has extensive tables and charts showing multiple examples that say they prove Sean Combs was arranging for the workers to travel to be paid for adult acts. Prosecutor is focusing on a few specific examples for each, noting the defendant is guilty based on any single of these instances. The traveling freak-off show was always in motion and coming to a glamorous locale near you, Slavic said. Cassie and male workers traveled through LA, Miami, New York, Atlanta, Turks and Caicos, Ibiza, according to travel and credit card records cited by the prosecutor. And then we get into forced labor. Forced labor is an element of the racketeering conspiracy charge. Prosecutor said the jury heard evidence of forced labor as to Cassie, Ventura, Jane, Mia, Capricorn, Clark. Cassie and Jane had no choice but to perform for Combs, even as they became sick and their bodies wore down. Days-long freak-offs were fueled by substances. Both of his girlfriends regularly suffered from UTIs, but were still forced to perform at Combs' direction. Combs used patterns of force that caused Mia to believe that she would be harmed if she didn't comply with his wishes. Mia testified that Combs slammed her into a wall, addition to violence, and she saw him subject Cassie to. When Mia was in South Africa with Cassie, her job was threatened if she didn't answer the phone. Prosecutor continued, Mia knew that she couldn't tell Combs no. Combs' essay of Mia was also discussed. Capricorn Clark represented another example of forced labor, pointing to instances of unpaid overtime, threats against Clark's employment, including when she was allegedly kidnapped and given repeated lie detector tests over suspicions that she had stolen jewelry. Combs even told her that she would never work again. That's serious harm. The human resource department at Combs' company was a puppet for Combs and didn't advocate for Clark or any employees. When Clark tallied up $80,000 in overtime pay that she was owed, Combs ripped up the paper and never paid it. Human resources didn't do anything about it, she added. Because again, part of the RICO law.
Yeah, right there.
And then we have witness tampering, obstruction. I mean, I'm already sold. And then we still got more to go. The jury then heard prosecution detail alleged of witness tampering and obstruction. These allegations relate to Combs' action after Combs filed her lawsuit. When the lawsuit was filed, Jane was stunned by the similarities of her experience in hotel rooms. Shortly after the suit was settled, Combs called Jane twice in what prosecutors have described as an effort to feed a false narrative of her that she was a willing participant. The jury heard recordings of the calls in which he described these nights as kinky encounters that I thought we both enjoyed. In the second call, he told her, I really need your friendship right now, and assured her that if she needed him too, she ain't got nothing else to worry about. Around that same time, he texted an employee to ensure that Jane's rent was being paid. Yikes, he was feeling extremely nervous and guilty. Second instance of alleged witness tampering involves Mia. After Cassie's lawsuit was filed and settled, Mia was then heard from one of Combs' bodyguards, D-Rock, who called her and began to discuss Miss Ventura's relationship, saying something to the effect of, they would just like to fight. They would just fight like a normal couple. Mia said D-Rock sounded nervous and said Combs missed her. Mr. Combs tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. Mia said later, as Combs' legal troubles were deepening, D-Rock tested her. Let me know how I can send you something. She declined. D-Rock's another one of them that needs to be penalized without a doubt. Slavic told the jury, finally, venue. We only have to show an act in this district. Doesn't have to be criminal. SD New York includes Manhattan, the Bronx. Count 2, freak-offs to Manhattan. Count 3, freak-offs, Jules to the London Hotel in Manhattan. Count 4, Jane in Manhattan. All over the place. They're proving it's different places. He's done. Conclusion. Slavic sat down after nearly a 5-hour address to the jury, making the government's case against Combs on all 5 charges. She thanked the jury for their dedication, noting that much of the evidence was hard to hear and see through the 6 weeks of the trial. Combs is guilty, Slavic said, and he was able to get away with it because of the power and influence he held. It is time to hold him accountable. It is time for justice, and it's time to find him guilty. Woo!
Oh shit! Oh shit! Hold on to your butts.
Kim, all right. I mean, my reaction just quickly, yeah, I got to agree with what everyone's saying. That's a bloodbath. They did such an eloquent job detailing it out, even for an idiot like me, and I'm a little bit more educated, I guess, than some, because we've been covering it for so long. But man, that's a hard one to pass up. I mean, it's still possible. There's going to be some ignoramus in there who's going to disagree with what the feds are telling them, right? And aren't going to accept the story if they're stubborn. But man, to anybody who's sort of on the fence or whatever, that feels like a mic drop to me. I feel like she did do her job. She summed up all the stuff we've been doubting and wondering and made it crystal clear why it's a done deal. What do you think?
I think they did a really good job of showing the paper trail, in the sense of that we have enough of the transactions of the transportation We have these text messages where consent is withdrawn. You have these pieces of evidence that are not debatable. They are there. The part of the problem I think sometimes when people testify is that they do get details wrong because they forget things. Trauma is funny like that. Like the situation with Bonna, but they were able to say, yeah, she might have got the date wrong, but you guys saw the photos of the injuries. Like you saw it. It happened. Then there's text messages of them talking about it to confirm that it happened. These things happened. And I did find it really compelling the way that they brought in the circumstantial evidence when it came to Kid Cudi, of just this idea of like, of course it wasn't necessarily him. He doesn't do anything for himself at all. The soup comment, right? And it's true. It's like, what are the odds that Diddy would say, I'm gonna blow up your car, and then your car gets blown up? But it's not that, like, come on. There was a lot of that today of just being like, did we forget that distributing any type of substance is a bad thing? Did we forget that consent can be withdrawn once and it's not okay? Like, all those types of things. It's so frustrating. And I think they did a really good job of countering all of those arguments. And I think they made it very clear to the jury that as long as there are some instances of these things happening, even one in some cases, then it qualifies, and that's it. They're going home. And I think this is going to be a really hard thing for Mark Agnifilo to attempt to counter. I am a little bit nervous because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have not hid my bias on this whatsoever. I'm not always very impressed with Mr. Costco lawyer, as we affectionately call him here. I wonder if it's going to be a 3-hour ode to baby oil when he gets up there. I don't know what is about to happen. We were joking last night, my family and I, that it's like, is he going to try to parody like, hey there, Delilah, and just being like, hey there, P. Diddy, what it's like in Rikers, and talking about, baby oil. Because it's like, what else do they have to go on? What else do they have now? They just have, they wanted it, and that's it. There's no argument of, oh, we didn't transport these people. Oh, we didn't obtain the substances. All that type of stuff. It's just not there. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's looking at these press hits, it does seem like everyone's feeling the fire the prosecution laid down. Now, obviously, this was their chance, right? This is what they do. But it's easy to mess that up. It's easy to be like, well, none of that really made sense. I don't agree with it. They did a pretty damn good job. So it'll be interesting to see how Diddy's team does it tomorrow. I'll be honest. Let's see if they can come. I don't know what they can bring because they didn't bring any witnesses or evidence to dispute it other than they liked it in the beginning. And I feel like the prosecution already answered that question. So if that's really what they're going to do is, look, he's a creep, but it's not illegal to have these nights. And if they're going to ignore all the pressure and coercion that I feel like prosecution just laid out so eloquently, well, it's over, in my opinion. How are they going to beat that, Kim? I don't know how they go after the locking them in hotel rooms, right? And all the threats. Like, it's all proven. And as the substances alone, let's talk about that. Just given the substances, they got to knock that out. The workers going across state lines, they got to lock that out. These are now proven facts that sort of have nothing to do with what our opinions are of the issue.
Nope,
you know what I mean?
It just is. It just is. And that's kind of that's my frustration. That's why, there's somebody else in the chat just said, what was it? Diana said, is he just going to do the ode to the applesauce burger? What is the plan here? What is the plan? Because how can you argue so much of this? What are you going to fall back on? The substances. Oh, well, they really wanted one, so it's fine. It's like, stop. Crimes happened here. And if you're just dismissing that and trying to look the other way, I'm sorry, but the law is very clear. And I do think even if he doesn't get every charge, he's going to get something. That's my personal opinion. And I think they've proven it very well today. And I hope they've taken some of the confusion out for the jury.
Yeah, I think they did. I think it's going to be hard to beat. We're not done. We still got some more to talk about quickly, but I want to wrap up the recap there. Do not miss tomorrow's show. I think Emily's going to come back finally. She's going to get in that courtroom, she hopes, because I'd love to get some opinion on someone who can watch Diddy throughout Diddy's defense to see how confident he really is. So stay tuned. We'll try to get BJ back. We're keep going. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And there still could be some twists and surprises. So make sure you hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for all alerts after you've hit the subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed, folks. Smash the like and leave your comments down below, and do the same thing for It's Kim over on YouTube, as well as that surprise witness. Thank you guys so much for watching.